Day one of drills for players at positions of need for the Jaguars, and we had some people show off. Did it get the Jags' attention? I'll tell you all about it on this episode of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day, and we always thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, and you can also go over to YouTube and subscribe to the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where you'll see me on there also. You can subscribe for free. Just hit the like button, hit subscribe, and then hit the bell so you get notifications each and every time we drop an episode. And then audio-wise, wherever you get your podcast, make sure you tap into that location every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. And shout out to the everydayers for joining us every day. And you can be an everydayer if you join us every day as well. Well, man, day one of the NFL Combine drills and measurements happened yesterday, and I was glued to the TV because it was edge rushers, it was defensive tackles, and it's linebackers, and those are the guys that the Jaguars, some of the guys that the Jaguars need. They have a few needs that they're trying to address, but we're not going to forget that is those positions are critical. Maybe not linebacker, off the ball linebacker so much, but edge rushers and defensive linemen. The Jaguars definitely need that. We'll talk about the winners on day one, and then we'll talk about fits for the Jaguars and whether or not some of the guys that did really well, if they fit what the Jaguars need enough for the Jaguars to go ahead and swing. And traits. Do traits, do they trump tape? And what I mean by that is, are you going to allow the traits and what could possibly be trump the tape? Now, I'll get into that because folks will think, well, they did it with Trayvon. No, they didn't. Trayvon had really good tape. He had really good tape on a real good defense. They just had to use a projection of how they were going to use him as opposed to how he was used. So there's two different things. All right, so let's just get back to the top of it. Day one came and measurements come first, and there weren't any surprises. T'Vondre Sweat came in a pound over 365, so everybody made a big deal about that. One of the things that I was looking forward to were the measurements of guys like Chop Robinson, Dallas Turner. And to my surprise, Dallas Turner wasn't as tall as I thought he was. Now, I've been watching that kid for a minute because a real good friend of mine in D.C., Air Force buddy, was in the Air Force, I believe, with Dallas Turner's father. If he didn't, I think he was in the Air Force or he knew him down in South Florida. And he told me a couple of years ago when Dallas came out of high school just to keep an eye on him. So me being an SEC guy, I did. They always had him listed at 6'4", 6'5", 250, 260. Well, he measured at 6'2". So a little bit like 6'2" and a half, 243 pounds. But make no mistake about it, 83-inch wingspan, like the wingspan of a 6'11" player, is unreal. A 40-inch vertical. And then the kid goes out and runs a 4.47 40-yard dash. So I'm just going to call him Baby Khalil Mack. And we'll talk about whether or not he's a fit for the Jaguars at 243 pounds. But good football players are good football players. Let me tell you something. Athletically, he is not Will Anderson's little brother. He ain't nobody's little brother. He's a rare specimen when it comes to his athleticism. Another winner was Chop Robinson, another player that I was interested to see how he measured. Came in a little bit, he's big. You know, I was wondering if he was going to be 6'3", but he was right under 6'3" at 6'2" and 5/8. Weighed 254 pounds, so the weight is good. And just like advertised, fast, 4.49 40 at 250 pounds, 254 pounds, 38-inch vertical. Chop Robinson is for real. 10.8 long jump. Just the real deal. The tape says what it says. He has the most bend of anybody I've seen probably since Von Miller. And the way he bends and flattens out is just tremendous with his first step too. I think he had a 1.64 10-yard. That's unbelievable. That's the get off that you can't you can't teach it. It's just what it is. So Chop Robinson, named Damian Robinson. If you're a Florida State fan, you remember Florida State went after him heavy, but they just did not get him. He, obviously a DMV kid that decided to stay not too far from the area and go to Penn State. Braden Fiske or Fisk, man, let me tell you something. If there's one guy that is the most Duval dude I have seen yet, it's Braden Fisk from Florida State. 6'4" and change, 296 pounds, 4.76 40 or something like that. Tremendous jumping ability, tremendous agility, tremendous quickness. He played that way at Florida State too. Here's the question: are his arms long enough for Trent Baalke? At some point, when you say, well, Braden Fiske is a good fit, Braden Fiske is a good fit here in Duval. Braden Fiske is a good fit anywhere. Braden Fiske is going to be a star wherever he goes. And he's going to be one of the most likable players too. Now, you probably won't like him if you're going against him because he's going to live in your backfield. But he is for real. And I keep comping him to Kyle Williams. Shout out to Trap Johnson too. Travis Johnson, longtime NFL player, Florida State. He said the same thing. He didn't even say he doesn't even follow me, but somebody sent it to me that he said he reminded me of Kyle Williams. Because Kyle Williams, we think of Kyle Williams when he was older. You got to go back to when Kyle Williams was younger. He was very, very explosive. And if you go back and look at the tape and look at his body, they are built almost just alike. I hate comparing just white guys to white guys because I was trying to find another comp, but Kyle Williams is the one that just comes up. So take a look at it and see exactly what I'm talking about. But guys like Fisk, they play for a long time in the NFL because they bring their lunch pail. The quickness is real. That's how he played on tape, and that's how he worked out yesterday. All of this, and there were other great players too. There are a bunch of guys out there, man, that look really, really good. And it was just, you can't have them all, right? You're going to fall in love today with, you'll fall in love today with the guys just because that's who worked out. But when it comes down to it, man, the bottom line is we never know who they're going to fall in love with tomorrow. Like Byron Murphy had a good workout yesterday. Quick, powerful, compact, big lower body. I think Fisk is quicker. I think Murphy may be more powerful at the point of attack. Two different types of players. Both are going to be good. The question is do they fit with Jacksonville? Because this is a Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. So that's just day one, man. We ain't even gotten to day two with the wide receivers. We haven't gotten into the cornerbacks that are going to work out, the offensive linemen, quarterbacks throwing, all of that stuff. But you know what the needs are with Jacksonville. It's corners, possibly wide receiver, offensive line, interior. You let them tell you, they're going to run it back. It sounds like more and more they're setting this up to run it back with the same offensive lineman, maybe only adding like one person to that group. I just hope they don't get caught making the same mistake that they made last year, because I believe competition is really, really good, and it's only going to boost the team. It's hard to address competition, though, when you have holes in your starters, and they need more defensive line help, interior. They need edge depth. They also need cornerbacks. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. I'm going to talk about fits. All the guys that I saw yesterday that fit for the Jaguars, not necessarily first-round picks, but guys that, you can get them at some point in the second, third, fourth round, depending on if you do a little bit of moving back or whatever. I'll talk about that here in segment 2. We're going to go over fits for the Jacksonville Jaguars from all the guys that we saw working out yesterday. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. I have to let you know first about FanDuel, man. FanDuel is the real deal, man. And I know you guys know that because I've been telling you for a long time. We talked about it a lot during football season, but now you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. I'm telling you, man, get in on FanDuel right now. Start betting. These games are the absolute truth. The NBA information is there for you to read before you make your wager, and then you can make your wager. So just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, coming at you live here from Wigan Studios on Locked On Jaguars on a Friday edition of Locked On Jaguars. The combine workouts have started. I saw some people complaining about it yesterday, saying that they needed to move it back early in the day. And they got to understand, man, a lot of folks they're at work. They don't have TVs at work like I do. You know, I got a TV right here in my office while I can have a TV on, but I don't today. But when I'm at my other job, you know, cutting hair at the barbershop, they got flat screens all over the place. So a lot of people don't have the ability to see this stuff during the daytime, and they want to watch it at night. I get, though, the folks that are on the ground, they want it done early so they can get their day going. And then they figure you can always just replay it anyway. But you know how advertising works. We all, I depend on advertising to a certain extent. So I get it. But I'm not going to complain because I was just happy to see some football activity, man, instead of everybody just talking all the time. And I know it's drills, but it's drills where everybody's being evaluated on an equal plane. And yesterday there were guys that just stood out. And I tried to line up the guys that I wanted to see based on the Jacksonville Jaguars and what they need. And as it turns out, it was a very, very good day for guys that the Jaguars need. Let's talk about the defensive linemen. There were some guys that really, really showed you exactly what it is that they could do. Jared Verse, who has met with the Jaguars apparently. Jared Verse had a stellar workout in his own right, running a 4.5 940, a little bit under 6'4". Going in right at about 255 pounds, a guy that really transfers power to speed really, really well and speed to power really, really well. Did good yesterday, did really, really good. What is he, though? Is he a number one? Is he a number two? Is he a number three? Or is he just a football player? I think he's just a football player. And he looked really, really good, really agile, too. So didn't look stiff at all. Byron Murphy, I mentioned, compact, a little bit under 6'1", over 300 pounds, gets really low. He's one of those dudes, man. It's almost like it's different from collegiate Kancey. It's not the same because Kancey was with quickness and Murphy is pure power and quickness. So interested to see what people think he's going to be. Is he a three technique? Is he a two gap guy? What is he going to be at the next level? He's not a nose. I think he's too small to play nose, but he is a disruptive player. He's a very, very disruptive player. Played in a little bit of a read and react system where they didn't attack a lot of gaps, I don't believe, and go for pass rushing. They almost played it like Georgia a little bit, and guys weren't going to get those big sack numbers. So I'm interested to see how people feel about him. If there's one player that I thought lost a little bit of steam, the guy that I thought was interested with the Jaguars, and that's Darius Robinson. He looks the part at 6'5", 296. The only thing was he ran a 5 flat 40. So that didn't put him in Trayvon Walker categories like a lot of people thought that they were going to say, okay, this guy's a freak of nature, sort of like Trayvon Walker. I don't think he's that. I like Chris Jenkins. I don't think he fits with what the Jaguars want to do and are going to do. T'Vondre Sweat, big old player, right? I don't think he's a 3-down guy. I think he's a 2-down guy. And then I always wonder, if you're 21, 22 years old and you're 366, what are you going to be when you're 27, 28, and you got a bunch of money in your pocket? So that's just a fair concern. If someone has that concern about him, I totally get it, and I totally understand that as well. Other guys that impressed me, some was Rook Orororo. I finally figured out how to say his name because everybody else was saying it the way that I thought was right, but I was unsure. Very impressive at 6'4", 294. I think he's an inside-outside guy. Another guy I think fits in real good with the Jaguars. Will probably fit real good with the 49ers, too, on the interior of their defense, if you think about how they like to attack the quarterback. But I think Rook I think if there's anybody with the most upside along of the defensive lineman, I think it's him. I think he has a chance to end up being really, really, really special if people let him hang around any longer than a middle of the second round pick. Michael Hall surprised a little bit because he was taller than some people expected. Michael Hall was one of those dudes that was always listed at 6'3", but then people would say, well, maybe he's 6'2". No, he's a legit 6'3". He's 6'3", 290 pounds, and he is a quintessential 3 technique. That is exactly what he is. So I think he's a guy that's going to play in a 4-3 defense and really, really penetrate from the inside. Over the years, he'll probably gain 9, 10 pounds and be a very, very stout player. So I think he is really, really good. He impressed me. Gabriel Murphy impressed me more athletically than I thought he would, the edge out of UCLA, along with Latu, his partner, his running partner, who has some extended medicals that have to get checked out. Marshawn Nealon is a dude, man, that continues to impress me a little bit. Not quite as athletic as I thought he was going to be, but still held his own. I think Mekhi Wingo is a good player. He looked good yesterday, but I believe he's a little small for the Jaguars, and I don't think they'll go in that direction. Dwayne Carter from Duke, another dude that I've been high on this whole time. He looked really, really good yesterday. So those are some of the defensive line guys and some of the edge guys in defensive line. Of course, we talked about Dallas Turner. Like I said, I call him baby Khalil Mack. I think he's such a good football player that you figure out how to use him, but I just don't think he's going to get to the Jaguars. In fact, I don't think he's going to get past the top 8 picks. I think he's going to be probably one of those first defensive type guys to go after the quarterbacks and wide receivers go early. Maybe the first defensive player taken. We mentioned Chop Robinson. I like Chris Braswell too, but he's a little bit. Chris Braswell is sort of the kind of guy that's going to play Sam. He's going to play Sam probably in a team that runs an odd front and be a really good productive player. I don't necessarily see a target when I think about him, when I think about the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. Now, could the Jaguars be in line for an off-ball linebacker? They could, depending on how they feel about Chad Muma and Devin Lloyd and their progression, and also how they still feel about how much time they think that Foy Oluwakan has left. Look no further than Edgerrin Cooper and Payton Wilson. Those two dudes, I already had a first-round grade. Now, let me tell you how I do that. So I'm a little bit different than other people. Some people have a first-round grade on like 15 people. This is what I do, and it's weird and it's different for me. I figure since there's 32 first-round picks, I'm going to have 32 first-round grades. I'm just going to take the top 32 guys. Edgerrin Cooper, in my opinion, is one of them because he reminds me, him and Payton Wilson, they both remind me of those dudes playing in San Francisco where they're very sudden. They see ball, they hit, they run, they tackle, they get there quickly, and then they run as fast as they did that play. They do it again on the next play. I like both of them. This is sometimes the problem that you run into when you commit yourself to players. And then down the line, maybe a year or two later, when you're already committed to those guys, you see two guys that might be better. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'll say the two guys I just mentioned are better than Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma. That's just the way I feel. But the Jaguars are committed to their guys, and they'll pass these dudes up because they have other needs. They have other things that they want to do, that they need to be doing, and I get it. This is why, man, when you take certain players, man, and you trade up for them, and both of those guys came in the same draft, you got to play against the guys you don't pick. And sometimes you don't pick players because you already have players at their position. And look, I get it, and I understand it. It's an inexact science, right? I'll tell you what, man, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Will the Jaguars ignore traits and just pay attention to tape and the athleticism that they saw here? That's the big question. I got a feeling the answer is no, but I'm going to at least give them the benefit of the doubt and tell you why I think they just might do it. Do it in just a second here in third final segment on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by BetterHelp. That's right, BetterHelp. If you've ever needed therapy, well, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because I have needed therapy before in the past on multiple occasions. And BetterHelp has been very helpful for me personally. Now I'm just trying to figure out the things that I want to do with my time. It seems like I have more things that I want to do and things that I need to do. And sometimes I get bogged down because I don't take time out for myself, right? And one of the things that BetterHelp does is help you figure out a better way to figure out the things that you want to do, need to do, and give you time to prioritize those things. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/locked-on today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked-on for 10% off your first month. All right, running it down here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen on a rainy, nasty Friday here in North Florida. But I don't complain about the weather because at least I'm here to see it. All right. So we were talking about the defensive line and edge, the winners on day one, and then fits for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Some of the guys I said probably wouldn't fit. I said for a reason, and that is because Jaguars GM Trent Baalke is notoriously known for and he's not the only one, but he's notoriously known for paying attention to it, emphasizing and prioritizing traits, physical traits, length, size. It's not wrong to think that, if you get guys like that over a period of time, you're going to win, right? The only time that it becomes something what gives me a little bit of the trepidation of thinking that it's the way that you go all the time is it takes the individualness out of it, right? So if you pay attention to traits, you like ignore Aaron Donald. And obviously the guy's the GOAT amongst defensive tackles. And it's hard to imagine any scenario where you go, I don't want that guy on my football team. It's easy now to look at it and say, well, he's the GOAT. Of course I'd take him. But I'm talking about before he became that, when you just totally eliminated him because, and I'm not saying the Jaguars did, but I'm saying that people who pay attention to traits to that extent, they would have just looked at him and said, 6'1", 293, nah, that's all right. We ain't dealing with it. The likelihood of him being good over a long period of time isn't that high. And that's not wrong or incorrect. But look what happens when you totally ignore it. If you don't take a closer look and say, you know what, he might not have traits, but whatever he has, he makes up for it, right? And I'm thinking that with Braden Fiske. And I don't want to sit here and constantly compare him to Aaron Donald like I saw other people do yesterday. But I will compare him with this. There are some people that will redline him just off of the fact that he doesn't have long arms. And then he'll redline them every time they play him on Sunday and go, you should not have done that, right? I don't want the Jaguars to allow themselves to cost them potentially getting a really, really good player like that. Somebody who can be a bell cow for you for a decade, right? Galvanize the fans. And he plays a way that's really, really contagious. Those guys play like Chop Robinson's the same way along with Dallas Turner. These guys, they play a certain way. I think Byron Murphy's the same way too. They play a way that kind of lifts the room, right? They're contagious. And people always talk about raising the floor of the room when it comes to getting talent. I think there's two ways to raise the floor of the room, right? Or to raise the house. I don't want to raise the floor. I want to raise the house. You can get underneath it and lift it up, or you can inject a bunch of talent right into the middle or towards the top and then push down. You feel me? Inject talent into the middle of your team and then push down. You're not necessarily raising the floor. You're lifting the house, but you're doing a push-up as opposed to lifting it up this way. And I think that's why I keep talking about a trade back. Because a trade back, okay, if you use a first-round pick, you're putting the guy at the top. Whoever you pick at 17, if he comes in here to Jacksonville, you'd hope that he's your 6th or 7th best player on your team with the way the Jaguars are right now. Trevor Lawrence, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, Travis Etienne. And then you start thinking about it, okay, who else, right? Maybe Foye Oluokun, Andre Cisco. So the dude that you take at 17, depending on what his position is, he might be the 6th or 7th best player on your team. On the Jaguars, that's not a lot of teams. Like you can take a dude the 17th pick, and he might be the 12th best player or the 13th best player on the Chiefs. That's a different ball game. But for Jacksonville, where you are right now, he might be the 6th best player. So what if you move back and you get 2 bites of the apple instead of the 6th best player? You get a guy who's your 10th best player, and then you get another guy who's your 12th best player. Injecting in the middle, causing the top to elevate by pushing down. And then you start counting down now. And you get to number 53, and whoever's number 54, you have a hard conversation with them. So if you inject 12 players onto your team, and they're not the floor guys, they're higher than that, and you're pushing the other guys towards the floor. That's what competition does. I just think that the way you do it and the way you lift your franchise is you throw traits out of the window. You better get football players. You better get guys that are heartbeats. Traits are a part of the equation, but they're not the end all for the equation. If it's something that allows you to consistently look past certain players because they don't have certain traits, I think that's a mistake. I think if somebody's good, you say, you know what, we like traits, but traits be damn, I need him on my team. And I'll figure out a way to get him on the field so he can help our football team. Now, Dallas Turner isn't going to be there, so we can forget about that one, right? After yesterday, Chop Robinson may not be there because he is the best, I think, the best natural pass rusher in this draft, and that includes Dallas Turner, and it includes Jared Verse. I think the best natural pass rusher, and that also includes Latu. The best natural pass rusher, in my opinion, is Chop Robinson. I think he probably is going to be better suited in a 3-4, or maybe he can play the way Cliff Averill played when he was with the Seattle Seahawks. That guy, he can play on either side, probably on the strong side where the right tackle is, and line him up wide, man, and just let him do what he does, or move him around a little bit. But there are going to be some people that try to compare him to Vic Beasley. I think he's way better than that. I think he's better than Bruce Irvin. I think he's really, really more like a Cliff Averill type. He probably could, I wouldn't say Dwight Freeney because he's not quite built that way, but he might be as accomplished a guy as maybe Robert Mathis. You know, we might look up 7-8 years from now, and this dude is playing that way because that's how he plays, in my opinion. I saw a lot of people comp him to Yannick Ngakoue, and that's fair. I think he's a little heavier than Ngakoue, though. I'm interested, though, to see today. I want to see those corners. I want to see in the corners. I don't think the corners run today, but the wide receivers. Texas and Florida State had good days yesterday. Florida State, Kalen DeLoach, the linebacker, even though he's 5'11", 210, ran a 4.47. And that's good for him because everybody knows he's undersized, but at least you're going to be undersized. You better be fast. And he's a hard go-getter, and he's a tackler. So FSU and Texas had really, really good days yesterday. I want to see what guys run when they start running. I want to see Keon Coleman. I want to see Quinyon Mitchell. I want to see Nate Wiggins. I heard Nate Wiggins thinks he's going to get a 4.2. I want to see Terrion Arnold. I think Terrion's capable of getting a 4.3 easily. I want to see Terrion Arnold's vertical jump because that is going to blow y'all's mind. Terrion Arnold and Keon Coleman are 2 guys I want to see their vertical jump moving forward. But yeah, traits don't matter as much when it comes to DBs. By the way, Enos Rakestraw, you got my attention as well. It doesn't matter as much with them. It doesn't matter as much with receivers. When we talk about those traits, I think Trent mainly is talking about front 7 guys and offensive linemen more than anything else when it comes to that length. So maybe when you have to look at guys like Mike Sandstrel over the weekend, Trent, you won't have those guesses as to whether or not his traits are going to stop. One guy I heard they are looking at is TJ Tampa. I heard he has a meeting with the Jaguars. He's a 6'2", 200-pound corner who plays man-to-man. So the mantra is out there. All of the dudes that's taking the podium, especially that play DB, they're saying man-to-man, man-to-man. That's what Jaguars are. They're man-to-man, and people are talking that up and playing that up. So if I had to take my guess right now, it looks like Jaguars are going to go corner very early in this draft. I still would favor a move back and them get a two bites of the apple before their second-round pick, before that pick. If they're going to keep that pick, if they re-sign Calvin Ridley before the league year, they won't keep that pick. If they don't, they do keep that pick. I would love for the Jaguars to take advantage of this draft. Throw that traits thing out of the window a little bit or don't have it as be as much of an emphasis and take some of these players. Keep watching, man. We'll watch for all of the excitement. I think I'm going to have Michael Cornegay, the DB doctor, on, who trained Terry and all and other guys. I think I'm going to get him Sunday for an interview, so I'll try to have that for you guys on Monday. But you guys have a nice weekend, man. Y'all take care of yourself. Enjoy the rest of the coverage from the Combine. Keep shooting your questions at me at Shop Talking Wig on the X app, and I'll answer them as much as I can. Until then, you guys take care of yourself, man, and have a good weekend here from Locked On Jaguars.